Criticism can be one of those things that actually stays with you from a lifetime. I can remember things that my bosses or people that I've actually really respected that they've said to me years ago. At the time, they were painful, but I still remember those things. And actually, to some extent, when somebody delivers criticism to you, it actually has a certain level of potency. And depending on who it's from, it can be crippling. Or adversely, if no one's getting any type of feedback, the same thing could happen where you're not making any real progress. And when it comes to criticism, I would say in the past, I've always had a turbulent relationship with it. Historically, I'd always feel anxious and not really wanting to delve into the realm of feedback or any type of criticism. And unfortunately, this narrative is playing out all too often. I don't think we're really comfortable in taking criticism nowadays. And most people don't operate under any type of rules of critique without feeling some type of way. And I think the modern day version of criticism is kind of disjointed. And in the workplace, when it's done via email or Outlook or in Teams, it's fragmented and therefore it's difficult to gather any type of momentum. And over the years, due to my nature of my work, it's part and parcel of what I do. I go through criticism now on a regular basis. So if you're like me back then, where you might have felt shy, you might have felt like it wasn't your place, or you just lack the confidence. Hopefully in this video you can learn that criticism can actually be a powerful ally when used properly. I used to work for a family business. Because it was relatively quite small, there was always somebody with an opinion that had to say something. And due to the nature of my work, it's very visual. Everyone can see what I'm doing, and there was always a lot of feedback. And in one instance, one of my managers actually sent me an email, and on the face of it, it was quite direct. And I didn't know how to take it. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to say. And this is the thing, I was stuck on how to react. Now let's break down criticism. I actually think there's 3 types. The first type is probably the most common. It's reaction-based criticism. Sometimes it's based on bias, emotional attachment, or even a visceral feeling. It happens quickly and instinctively. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, driven by someone's expectations or desires. Basically, it's a gut reaction. It's almost like a prefabricated, fluffy kind of pillow fight type of feedback. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't hit home. It doesn't really make any sense. It's quite vague. It's non-specific. That essentially could be said to anybody and everyone. I mean, you've heard these standard lines, I love what you've done, but could you do something a little different? Or could you go outside of the box? I mean, what does that mean? And this is probably the worst kind of feedback because it's hard to distinguish what's good or what's even bad. Then there's this kind of directional feedback. It's usually an instruction or a suggestion. And when this is in a group setting, a list of suggestions can become a kind of Frankenstein of an idea compared to what you've actually started with. So similar to reaction-based feedback, directional-based feedback indicates no effectiveness but feelings and lacks usefulness in helping you improve. And what we really need is critical thinking, a process of taking a statement and determining whether it's true or false. When you're working on something, you're looking at the aim of an objective. And those that are really good at analysing themselves, they have learned to deliberately step into this periodically and to critique what they have done so far. So I've even noticed when you spend a lot of time around people, you start to notice over time that they start to say one another's phrases and say words that are similar. They talk like one another. And this happens across all social groups. It's part of a process called we seek out efficiency in communicating with others. Communication actually grew from the need from wanting to get someone else to perform an action. So when you think about it, it's not very effective when you're spending all day trying to get your point across. And when you open yourself up to critique on a regular basis, it's a chance to share vocabulary. You might have people from different places using different terminology just to say the same thing. So this shows that critique is an opportunity to learn. I've even noticed if you've been working for something for a long time, you tend to just miss stuff because you're so used to seeing it. Let's say you've been working on a piece of work for a long time, or you've been doing something a certain type of way. How do you know if it's any good? So I was recently in the gym and I was performing this exercise, and I've always done it the same way because it gave me results. So I came from a standpoint, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I got talking to this person recently and they realized that I was doing something not wrong, but I could be doing it better. And they were observing me. I didn't know at the time, but they were observing. And they kind of just said, oh, can I show you something? And I was open to trying out something new, and I tried it and I really did feel it. And I was like, okay, that's all right. The next day I really felt it. It was sore, but sore in a good way. And it was then I knew, okay, cool. I'm gonna add that into my toolbox of exercises. And that was because I was open to taking on criticism. So when you receive feedback, it really forces you to think. It forces you to rethink how you've been working. And this is not to say that you need to take 100% of feedback. You need to take into account where it's coming from, what their intentions are, and what the overall goal of that person giving you the feedback and what your goal is. When I think about criticism or feedback in its simplest form, I always think about a coach, manager, or some type of mentor. Collectively, their goal would be to guide you. Their intentions are to better you as a person, to guide you away from bad practices and towards good ones. So the right type of criticism can actually be an advantage. Have you ever had one of those managers or bosses that everyone's actually quite scared to tell them the truth? Now, is that helping them, or is it a detriment to that person's growth or the growth of the company or whatever objective you're trying to achieve? And it's actually quite funny I mentioned that. There was actually an episode of The Simpsons where Mel Gibson meets Homer, and Homer's the only person willing to actually give him any feedback. Nowadays, I would prefer someone just to be really just honest and straight up with me when it comes to giving any type of feedback. Don't sugarcoat it, keep it simple and straight. And because at the end of the day, it just saves stress and time on both sides. And it could be something so simple that some people have noticed, but they've been kind of scared to say. Because here in the UK, we kind of err to the side of caution when it comes to feedback. We're quite polite when it comes to culture, I would say. So unless you really ask for feedback, you're not really going to get it. And as I said before, I work in the creative industry, so I'm constantly having healthy exchanges of criticism and feedback. We have meetings where we exchange our thought processes behind our work, because sometimes we haven't really broken down, even in our own heads, why we've arrived at a decision. So criticism actually helps you understand yourself better. Quite a few of us have probably had those awkward conversations where it's gone downhill because someone on either side, or maybe even both sides, is feeling some type of way about some type of criticism they received. And it's very easy to be defensive over something you've worked long hours for and you've put in your blood, sweat and tears into. I mean, yeah, I get it. You're passionate about it. And you're laying yourself bare for all to see, and you may even feel vulnerable. Even if you think you're being criticized unfairly, don't retaliate quickly. Don't have that knee-jerk reaction, because at the end of the day, we need to maintain these relationships that we are working in or we have around us. It can be approached in a calm manner after some thoughts. I always try to give myself some time to think before I speak. Whether it's in the work scenario, sports, or you're just having a one-to-one with a friend, it's important to remember that criticism isn't a personal judgment. It's about having analysis and making an improvement off the back of analysis. What's working, what isn't working, what's going well. Feedback is gonna hurt, and it's always happening whether you ask for it or not. It's happening all the time. It might be conscious or unconscious. It might be direct or it might be verbal. Or it's a subtle change in the facial expression of somebody. Criticism should be a regular part of our interactions. Without criticism, we're not going to know whether it's good or bad or whatever we're working on. Eventually, you're just going to come to your own conclusions. And the way of the world is that there is already so much noise that we have to decipher. And when you approach criticism, there's clarity. And anyone can do this. Anyone can examine the conversations that they're having. It's important to understand what makes a good conversation and a bad one. It's no longer good to have all these interactions. It's actually wasteful without actually even learning anything. Criticism can be a painful experience, but I encourage you to commit to listening. If a person offers you feedback, give them the time to speak. Because if you don't, you might miss an opportunity for you to grow if you just dismiss it. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the content. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment below if you have any suggestions or you just want to say hello, and I'll see you guys in another one. Bye bye.